of a surprise, I guess, the fact that they didn't fly airplanes against us.
The Pentagon said its planes hit what they aimed at, that it doesn't know why the French embassy and others were damaged when the F-111s dropped smart bombs over 2 targets. This Defense Department film shows the laser-guided bombing system used by the F-111s. The planes come in at a low level using infrared mapping and a laser to direct the bombs to the target. Defense spokesman Robert Sims suggested that the Libyans' own missiles went awry. That is one possibility for the widespread damage.
These SAM missiles, most of them are going up and coming back down, which explains, I think, why we find one pictured in a civilian area.
In what one source said was a feeble Libyan attempt to retaliate, 2 missiles were fired from Libya at the Italian island of Lampedusa, where an American Coast Guard station with 25 to 30 men was the apparent target. The Libyan missiles fell short. In the aftermath of the raid, many administration officials are bitter that American pilots had to fly 6,400 miles round trip, refueling 4 times in flight, all to avoid airspace over France, which had denied overflight permission. With the possibility of war action in the central Mediterranean before the 6th Fleet withdraws, few at the Pentagon tonight are dwelling on the French refusal to help. Fred Francis, NBC News, the Pentagon.
The White House today called last night's bombing a success. Spokesman Larry Speake says it showed that this country will no longer tolerate terrorist murders. And as Chris Wallace reports now from the White House, President Reagan warned Colonel Gaddafi once again that more terrorism will bring more retaliation. Chris?
Tom, the White House tonight is in a position of reacting to events. What the U.S. does will be determined by what Libya does.
The president was still talking tough today, still clearly delighted at having taken on Gaddafi.
Pilots of the air and naval forces of the United States spoke to the outlaw Libyan regime in the only language that Colonel Gaddafi seems to understand.
Mr. Reagan said he doesn't want to launch another attack, but he emphasized if Libya strikes again, so will he.
Let us be clear. Yesterday, the United States won but a single engagement in the long battle against terrorism.
But for all the harsh rhetoric, officials say no more U.S. strikes are now in the works. Officials don't expect the president to use the attack at Lampedusa to justify a counterattack. One official saying it was so small we don't want to overreact. What would the U.S. respond to? A senior official said some new Libyan terrorism, something significant. West German Foreign Minister Genscher met with administration officials today, and sources say he predicted a wave of Libyan attacks, warning U.S. soldiers in Germany may not be safe. On Capitol Hill, there was still general support, even from Democrats.
On yesterday, when we struck, it was to teach the mad dog that he could be bitten worse than he can bite himself.
Every time he escalates, we have to strike.
But a few worried about where the president is headed.
I don't think that getting into the gutter with Gaddafi is the kind of policy of which I'm proud as a United States citizen.
Officials say the president approved a strike against Libya in principle last Wednesday.
At sometime midweek last week, the president said, take the military route.
Aides say he reviewed options and by the weekend okayed a final plan. But there was never a formal order to strike. Mr. Reagan acting by never saying stop.
He had the option to call off the mission at 6:59 last night.
At 7 p.m., U.S. planes hit Libya. Late today, top officials came to the White House to review the damage done to Muammar Gaddafi.
And there is great speculation here tonight about why Gaddafi has not yet surfaced, why he hasn't answered last night's attack with a fiery speech. Officials here say he may be regrouping, but they openly wonder whether he's still alive. Tom?
But Chris, I gather they have no hard intelligence, but the question remains, was he a specific target?
Well, they are not certainly saying that, but they went after the barracks that he and his family are known to live in, and it is very clear tonight that they, while they're openly speculating about whether or not he's alive or dead, they would be very happy if he's gone.
Chris Wallace at the White House tonight. We'll have more on this story, including a Soviet cancellation today. That and more in a moment.
New Mexico voters will go to the polls on June 3rd for a primary election. If you're from New Mexico, you can take part by sending in your FPCA, a federal postcard application, to the county clerk in your home county. 3 U.S. congressional seats will be decided, as well as the races for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and many other state and local offices.
Apply for your absentee ballot now by visiting your unit voting assistance officer.
As a result of the American attack on Libya, the Soviet Union today canceled next month's meeting between Secretary of State George Shultz and the Soviet Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze. It called the attack an aggressive and criminal action that made the meeting, in the words of the Soviet Union, impossible at the present time. Soviet leader Gorbachev said the bombing stamped out positive tendencies and hopes for improving U.S.-Soviet relations. NBC's chief diplomatic correspondent Marvin Kalb is at the State Department tonight. Marvin, did this catch the administration by surprise?
It did catch the administration by surprise. The U.S. did not anticipate the Soviet reaction. In fact, Tom, they did not really even take it into account. The administration was focusing on terrorism, teaching Gaddafi a lesson. They were not focusing on summit ramifications. They simply assumed that the summit would not be affected by any action they took against Libya. Now, that assumption is a basic miscalculation, but officials here say it is not they, but the Russians who are making a terrible mistake by supporting Gaddafi and by underestimating President Reagan's determination to fight terrorism.
They were having a hard enough time putting the summit together in the first place. I would think that this would seriously jeopardize the prospects for this year.
Yes, I think that is true. Officials on both sides, however, Tom, say that they still believe a summit is possible, that they want one, but they acknowledge that summit prospects have been dimmed. The possibility of working out a summit for late July is now just about ruled out. A possible opening on the calendar still in late November and December. But given the very volatile nature of the superpower relationship now, the emerging basic miscalculations on both sides, it's going to be very difficult to work that out. So even symmetry is now put in jeopardy by the fight against terrorism.
Thanks, Marvin. Of America's European allies, only the British government expressed enthusiastic support today for the bombing. And as NBC's Henry Champ reports tonight from London, there were widespread demonstrations against that government.
CIA! How many kids did he kill today?
Tonight, thousands crowded outside number 10 Downing Street, angered the Prime Minister had permitted American warplanes to attack Libya from British bases. When the demonstrators refused to leave, police hauled them away one by one. Earlier in the day, the American embassy and President Reagan were the targets.
It's more than Gaddafi is a mad dog, it seems to me today.
Prime Minister Thatcher went to Parliament certain of her convictions, but knowing her critics were waiting.
Does she not now understand the worst way to deal with terrorism is to act like terrorists ourselves?
The United States has more than 330,000 forces in Europe to defend our liberty. But again, it's inconceivable that they should be refused the right of self-defense to defend their own people.
In Vienna, students battled for hours with police. In France, the government had refused its airspace to the American task force. It would not comment today, but some of the French did.
I am just like Reagan. I think he must do that, and it's marvelous for me.
In Italy, ultra-left deputies sarcastically waved American flags in the parliament, and Prime Minister Craxi warned the attack could bring an increase in terrorism. In Germany, anti-American demonstrations in several cities. At the biggest in Frankfurt, the crowd burned the American flag. But Chancellor Kohl, at first cool towards the American attack, was warming up.
We always have rejected use of force, but who, like Colonel Gaddafi, preaches and uses force, must realize that one that gets hurt will defend himself.
At the British bases, the American Air Force continues its NATO exercises. Common Market ministers meet again on Thursday. They could not agree on how to fight terrorism before the Libyan bombing, and today's reactions make any common statement in the future doubtful. Henry Champ, NBC News, London.
Wednesday on Donahue.
I'm afraid that I might have a bad dream sometime, like, about all this, because it's like they keep putting on these missing children, and then they keep showing all these missing children. Like, you never know when you're just going to be captured.
I know. But you get bad dreams just for being